I am Rick Levine, the astrologer at Tarot.com. If you read your daily columns, your daily horoscope column, that's what I write. But we're here to talk about 2018, and we're here to talk about the astrology of 2018 in broad strokes. Now, here's the deal. We're talking about what I like to call the cosmic weather. This is about the planets that are going on out there. They impact each and every one of us slightly differently. Okay, these are pretty crazy times. You don't have to be an astrologer to look out there and go, oh my God, what the hell's happening? You know, it's like, it's pretty nuts out there. And we're here to talk a little bit about what's making it so nuts and what we can expect for next year. So there's a few major events that I really want to talk about. We could actually spend hours talking about the astrology of next year, depending upon how deeply we want to drill down. The main events that we want to talk about today are the outer planets that are changing signs or have just recently changed signs that will impact all of us. Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus are the three culprits that are each changing signs, either just already or upcoming and or through 2018. Jupiter is a 12-year cycle, which means it takes 12 years to go through each of the signs, which means it spends 1 year in each sign along the way. Last month, Jupiter moved from Libra into Scorpio, where it will be for almost all of 2018. It moves into Sagittarius in November, but for our discussion, we'll talk about Jupiter moving into Scorpio and what that means. Secondly, we're looking at Saturn, which is roughly a 30-year cycle, actually 29 and a half years. And Saturn changes signs every 2.5 to 3 years, depending upon its retrogrades. And Saturn will be moving from Sagittarius, where it's been for the last 2-3 years, into Capricorn, where it will be for all of 2018, 19, and for 2020. And then thirdly, we will be talking about Uranus, which is an 84-year cycle. And Uranus takes 84 years to go through all the signs, which means it spends about 7 years in each sign. 7 times 12 signs is 84 years. And we're just coming out of Uranus spending 7 years in the sign of Aries. It moved into Aries in March of 2010, actually on the day of the Fukushima earthquake, tidal wave, nuclear plant meltdown. That was the opening volley of Uranus moving into Aries on that day. And Uranus will move into Taurus in May of 2018, and it will stay there until early November, when it will retrograde back into Aries, and then it will move permanently, or at least into Taurus again in 2019, where it will stay for 7 years. So let's take these. Now, of course, in 2018, we also have our regular flurry of Mercury retrogrades. There are 3 of them. We have our regular eclipses. There's typically, and there is next year, beginning in late January and February, there's a pair of eclipses, and then again another pair later in the year. We also have in 2018 both Venus and Mars spending time retrograde, late summer, early fall. We're not talking about those today. Not that they aren't important, they are, but we'll unfold those during the year as we move closer to them. I want to stay focused here on the big 3 planets that are changing signs and what that might mean to us individually. So let's backtrack and let's talk about Jupiter's move into Scorpio. And what is Jupiter? Jupiter's the magnifying lens. Jupiter is the planet of bigger, better, and more. Jupiter, wherever it is in your chart natally, is an area in your chart where you expand, where you grow, where you learn. It's the good news planet. The problem is that too much of anything is not necessarily good, even if it's too much of a good thing. Too much sugar will kill you. Too much of anything turns bad. And the same is true with Jupiter. So we need to be careful about just thinking that Jupiter is good. It simply puts the magnifying lens on a particular area, turns the volume up, and brings things out into the open. So Jupiter last month in October moved into Scorpio, where it will stay until next November, until November of 2018. Scorpio is about things that are hidden. It's transformation that occurs out of sight. The time of year of Scorpio is Halloween. It's the time of year in the Northern Hemisphere where the growth of the previous 6 months out in the open pulls in and the leaves fall off the trees and it looks like there's no life. But the fact is that there's magic occurring, but the magic occurring is inside the trees. It's the beginning of the metamorphosis that allows spring to happen in Aries the following year. So Scorpio is about intensity, it's about transformation, it's about passion, it's about sexuality, it's about intimacy, even more than sexuality. It's about the power that happens when there is dominance and submission. And here we have the interesting thing that Scorpio, that Jupiter into Scorpio has already brought out into the open, and that's the intensity with which this exposing, the revealing of these men of power who have abused sexuality. We could do the whole list of people, from the Roy Moores to the Roger Ailes to the the people. In media, doesn't matter what your political interests are. This is happening all over. It goes right up to the presidency, obviously, and it's something that we are dealing with as a culture. And this is not about any one of these people. This is opening up a dynamic that is bringing things out into the open that was previously hidden. So Jupiter in Scorpio basically puts that magnifying lens on sexuality, on money. I think that things are going to be coming out into the open more and more with respect to what's going on with the special prosecutor investigations as to money interests. I think that all in all, Jupiter in Scorpio can create a very beneficial outcome, but it's not necessarily easy when things come out into the open that were originally scorpionically intended to be kept hidden in the dark, in the secret area. And so I think that Jupiter in Scorpio in each of our individual lives is a path for self-discovery, a path for learning about ourselves and about our relationships with others, but it also involves things that are actually, as we look at them and bring them out into the open, become fuel for transformation. Scorpio is a sign of transformation. It's the only sign in the zodiac that has 3 animal totems. It's the scorpion, the eagle, and the dove, and each one represents a successive state of transformation. It's interesting, Scorpio is a fixed sign, but it's actually about transformation. And in a way, the deeper message with Jupiter and Scorpio is that when you learn, that would be Jupiter, when you learn about things that expand your mind, that would be Jupiter, you cannot stop the transformation. Scorpio is fixed. You can't prevent the caterpillar from becoming the butterfly unless you kill the process. But the process itself is an unfolding, fixed process that is evolutionary. The second thing we want to talk about is we want to talk about Saturn moving into Capricorn. Now, this is a bit heavier. As Jupiter is expansion, Saturn is contraction. Jupiter lifts up, it's bountiful, it's buoyant. Saturn is heavy, it's depressive, it's responsibility, it's the weight, it's gravity. I remember once seeing a poster saying, gravity, it's not just a good idea, it's the law. So there's something about Saturn, it's impossible to escape the law of Saturn. Saturn is the rule. It's the limits. Saturn is the you get what you deserve. Saturn is the karmic planet. Saturn is, if you put in the hard work, eventually you will get to reap the rewards of Jupiter. Saturn and Jupiter work together. Jupiter is the big idea, and Saturn is the work you have to do to get the rewards that Jupiter brings. So Saturn and Jupiter is compression, expansion, heavy, light. Jupiter is optimistic, Saturn is pessimistic or realistic. Now, Saturn is a 30-year cycle, and as such, Saturn in December 19th of 2017, Saturn changes signs. It's been in Sagittarius for almost 3 years, and it now moves into Capricorn. This is a big deal. Why? Because Capricorn is Saturn's domicile. It's home. Saturn is at home in Capricorn. And therefore, if you are a Capricorn, Saturn's your ruling planet, your key planet. But for all of us, when Saturn comes back to Capricorn, it's like he's home. And I should say he's home or she's home, because we think of Saturn as Chronos, which is a male, father time, but Saturn is also the crone. It's the old wise woman. So we have to be careful, especially in this age of gender equanimity. We have to make sure that we don't just artificially think of Saturn as a he. Saturn both can be the you get what you deserve father, but it can also be the wise old grandmother who has wisdom that boys just don't have. So we have a sense with Saturn coming back into Capricorn of karma. You get what you deserve. The work that you've been doing over the past Saturn cycle, over the past 30 years, if you're old enough, that comes to fruition, or that comes around as Saturn moves through Capricorn. And again, you need to look and see, where is Saturn in your chart natally? How does it work for you? How do you deal with responsibility? How do you handle the question of authority or being an authority? And as Saturn moves through Capricorn, where in your individual chart does that occur? And what aspects does it make? But the point here is that for all of us, this is a bit of a reality check. This is a time to get real. And it's not like we have a choice in the matter. When Saturn moves into Capricorn, the shit gets real. We have to deal with our own stuff. It's like there's a saying, you've made your bed and now you have to lie in it. Well, there's this whole thing of the things that we've done come around, but it doesn't mean that we're just a victim of the past. Because part of the beauty of understanding how Saturn works is that in every present moment, you get to create new karma for the future. So this isn't about just being a victim of your past. It's also about exercising your sense of what you can do in every single moment, knowing that what I do now may be limited by what I've done in the past, but what I do now creates ripples that will go into my future, so that every moment creates the next possibilities that lay ahead. And that's really what Saturn in Capricorn is all about. There certainly is, though, a sense of it getting real. And there's another layer. Although we'll feel it a little bit in 2018, it'll take another couple of years for it to really come around. And that has to do with the planet Pluto, which is a 250-year, okay, it's 243 years about cycle. But Pluto moves very slowly. It's the slowest of the normally acceptable planets. I know that Pluto has been excluded and re-included and whatever. That's fine. We astrologers don't care. Anything that moves up there is a planet. Even the sun and the moon are planets to astrologers. So the point here is that Saturn has been in the sign of Capricorn for a while now, and Saturn remains in Capricorn until the early 2020s. Pluto remains in Capricorn until the 2020s. So Pluto is moving very slowly through Capricorn. Pluto creates destruction and reconstruction wherever it is. Pluto in Capricorn has begun a process of decay and destruction of Capricorn, the structures of our government, of our banks, of our roads, of the social systems that hold it all together. This is what Capricorn is about. And Pluto, in a very slow 20-year process, as it's moving through Capricorn, is creating this kind of top-down, nihilistic decay of those structures so we can rebuild them from the ground up. So that's Pluto. But as Saturn moves through Capricorn over the next couple of years, it's moving closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to Saturn, and it reaches Saturn in 2020, 2021. So that's a little bit far out for what we want to talk about today, except to understand the let's get real, the reality check that Saturn is issuing as it moves into Capricorn in December of 2017 and stays there all through 2018. The reality check isn't just a 1 in 30 year return to Capricorn. It's a 1 in 250 years when it returns to Capricorn while Pluto is in Capricorn too. And so there is a very powerful statement every time Saturn and Pluto align. This is a cultural, historical change that you can track back for millennia that have to do with the major social transformations and changes and conflicts that we've been through, and tracking that backward is absolutely a fascinating historical journey that we don't have time to do now, but it's one that is very, very fascinating. And so we're coming up to a time of, again, great important changes over the next few years, and 2018 is an opening of that door. Okay. Third thing, and that is Uranus moving out of Aries and into Taurus. Now, Uranus moves slower than Saturn or Jupiter, and as such, Uranus is changing signs in 2018. It's been in Aries for the last 7 years, and as it moves in 2018, in early May, it moves into Taurus, turns retrograde, and then backs out of Taurus back into Aries in early November. So it's really May, June, July, August, September, October, where Uranus is pushed into the new sign of Taurus. And then it gives us a bit of remedial time to go back to, all right, what didn't we get that we should have when Uranus was still in Aries, before it moves back into Taurus in 2019 and then stays there for the next 6-7 years. In Aries, Uranus, the planet of sudden change, of topsy-turvy, lightning striking. Uranus is the kapow. It's the lights go on. Uranus is called the Great Awakener. There are some astrologers, Rick Tarnas in particular, who poses the idea that Uranus might be considered as Prometheus, who stole the fire from the gods and brought it to the humans. It's this idea of technology and newness coming, and Uranus, as it moved through Aries over the last 7 years, has really changed the name of the game. It's brought us into the edge of things that we didn't really expect. A lot of new things came into being, and there's really the sense of excitement about what could be ahead. Now, as Uranus moves into Taurus next year, 2018, and gives us a glimpse of what will happen, it's really interesting because Uranus doesn't mind being in Aries at all, because Aries is spontaneous and in the moment, and Uranus creates that topsy-turvy, upside-down energy, and that's exciting. But Taurus is steady and determined, and Taurus is about structures that hold things together. Taurus is the bull. It's dense material universe. It's back to basics. Taurus is about things that are real. I think of it as sensuality. I don't mean sexuality. I mean things that I can touch, things that I can taste, things I can see. Taurus is very much about the perceptible world. It's real. And you'd think that Taurus can hold things together, and it does. But when Uranus moves into Taurus, it's like earthquakes. And that's not saying, I mean, we always have earthquakes. And it's not saying that when Uranus is moving through Taurus, we'll necessarily have more earthquakes. But it's those things that are the most stable, fundamental parts of our lives that actually may crack and explode and turn inside out and upside down. And Taurus might think that this is horrible when those things which are most fundamental all of a sudden rattle, are struck by lightning, catch fire, burn, are disintegrated. But the fact of the matter is that when Uranus takes something out, it always does it to reinvigorate and to create something new. And this is really about what Uranus and Taurus, the lesson of Uranus and Taurus, is that when we have to let go of something that is fundamentally stable and something that we don't think is up for grabs or up for negotiation, when that lightning strikes and all of a sudden that's not there, that's when the magic occurs, because that's when we get to rebuild the forest in a way that works for us individually. That's when we get to recreate our lives. And so we look, when Uranus is moving through Taurus next year in 2018, we get glimpses of where those changes might occur. And we can either draw back in fear and we can dig our trenches deeper, build our walls thicker to protect ourselves from that change futilely, or we can understand that this is where the universe is offering us an opportunity to break through those things that have held us back so we can move on into the future. One last thing I want to talk about before moving on, and that's the combination of Jupiter and Neptune. Now, we didn't talk about Neptune much because Neptune doesn't change signs in 2018. Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces for about 7 years already, and it will remain there for about another 7 years. Neptune is halfway through its visit to Pisces, and in a way, Neptune is the planet that in modern astrology is associated with the sign of Pisces. Pisces are the dreamers. Pisces are the intuitives. Pisces are it's the compassionate sign. Pisces is about dissolving the boundaries so that we can feel at one with all of humanity. Neptune is the planet that hums Pisces energy in modern astrology, and in ancient astrology, Jupiter was the planet that was associated with Pisces. And here's the beauty of this whole thing where I'm going, and that is, we talked a little bit about Jupiter moving into Scorpio now. Scorpio is a water sign. Neptune is in Pisces. That's a water sign. So during Jupiter's 1-year visit to Scorpio, it will move in and out and in to a trine with Neptune, creating a harmony between the old ruler of Pisces, that would be Jupiter, and the modern ruler or planet of Pisces, and that would be Neptune. So Jupiter, the planet of expansion and big ideas and opportunities, is working very beautifully with Neptune, the planet of illusions and dreams and spirituality. And these two planets created that trine for the first time the beginning of December of 2017, but will move in and out of phase through May and August of 2018, giving us again an opportunity to use our imagination to dream of a better future. And it's important here to understand that although Neptune is the planet of illusions, in the Freudian, Jungian understanding of how that works, illusions aren't necessarily falsehoods. An illusion is something that's based upon wish fulfillment. If you dream of something, that's an illusion. But our fantasies or our illusions actually are what create the scaffolding for reality to build itself on. So it's interesting to imagine our future. William Blake wrote once, he wrote, "What is now proved was once only imagined." So here we have an opportunity through December of 17 and on through the first 2/3 of 2018 to use our imagination to create a better world that we can then work toward actually manifesting or achieving. So that's the broad strokes for the year. And thank you again for all your support. And have a as happy holiday season as you can. This is an interesting holiday season. It's a tough one. Saturn moving into Capricorn says make it real. And typically around the holidays, we like to make it unreal. And so we may find ourselves in a bit of dilemma balancing our illusions and our dreams and our hopes with what's actually going on. But I'm sure we'll all make it through it and have a prosperous 2018. For Tarot.com, I'm Rick Levine.